The helicopter door gaped open at 800 feet. Wind screamed through the cabin like a living thing, tearing at everything not bolted down. Lieutenant Kira Brennan felt hands grip her arms, rough and certain, dragging her toward that rectangle of white nothing. Her wrists were bound with zip ties. Blood ran from her temple where they'd struck her, freezing on her cheek before it could drip. Through the gap in the black hood they'd thrown over her head, she could see sky and snow becoming one, a void that promised only cold and silence. Colonel Viktor Petrov stood before her, one hand gripping the overhead rail. The scar that ran from temple to jaw pulled his mouth into something that might have been a smile once, a souvenir from Afghanistan that had taught him to hate Americans. Behind him, 3 Spetsnaz soldiers watched with expressions carved from ice. "You know what you cost us?" Petrov had to shout over the rotor wash and wind. 47 men. 47 good soldiers. We counted. Everybody. Kira said nothing. Her jaw was set, teeth clenched against the cold and the fear she refused to show. She'd been trained better than that. 47 men, Petrov continued, stepping closer. And you're just one woman. He gestured to the open door, to the white abyss beyond. Garrett Hayworth's prize student, his great experiment. When he watches the video of this, when he sees what happens to women who try to be soldiers, maybe he'll understand his mistake. The soldiers moved behind her, forcing her toward the edge. Her boots slid on the deck, found purchase. She set her stance, made them work for every inch. They wanted her to beg, to cry, to prove everything they believed about women in combat. She'd give them nothing. "Any last words, Lieutenant?" Kira looked him in the eye. Her voice was steady, clear despite the chaos. "Count to 48. Petrov's smile faltered. "What?" "You're next." They shoved her hard. The helicopter disappeared above her. Sky and snow became one. The wind was impossibly loud, then impossibly silent. Time stretched and compressed and became meaningless. She saw fragments. Her father teaching her to shoot when she was 7. His patient hands adjusting her grip. The drill instructor at basic who'd said women couldn't hack infantry training. Garrett Hayworth's weathered face the day she graduated sniper school. Pride barely concealed behind his gruff exterior. Quinn Maddox's eyes as they dragged her away, understanding her signal. Play dead, survive. The mathematics of terminal velocity became absurdly clear in her mind. 9.8 meters per second squared. Accounting for air resistance, body position, tumbling versus stable fall. The impact force at this altitude would be... She hit. The world inverted. White became black, became red, became nothing. Somewhere far away, rotor blades faded into the storm. Silence claimed the valley. 96 hours earlier, the conference room at Fort Carson was thick with tension and the smell of bad coffee. Captain Evan Ashford stood at the front, pointer in hand, tactical map projected on the screen behind him. 30 soldiers sat in folding chairs, most of them men who'd served together for years, who knew each other's rhythms in combat the way musicians know a familiar song. "Gentlemen," Ashford began, then caught himself. "And lady, we have a situation." The men shifted in their seats. A few glanced toward the back of the room where Kira sat, spine straight, hands folded in her lap. She'd learned not to react to these moments. They came with the territory, inevitable as morning formation. "Russian separatist forces have been detected in the Colorado Highlands," Ashford continued. "Intelligence suggests they're targeting the Pikes Peak Research Facility." He clicked to the next slide. Satellite imagery showed rugged mountain terrain, dense forest, and a small cluster of buildings marked with a red circle. The facility houses classified weapons development, directed energy weapons. If it falls, the technology inside could shift the balance of power in Eastern Europe. He paused, letting that sink in. "We're establishing a defensive perimeter here, here, and here." The pointer tracked across the map. "Standard company deployment. 3 platoons, rotating watch, overlapping fields of fire. Textbook defensive operation. Another slide. This one showed a ridgeline, elevation markers indicating it stood 800 feet above the valley floor. Ridge 7. Observation post with clear sight lines covering the entire northern approach. It's our early warning system and our best overwatch position for the defensive line below. Ashford's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. Command has assigned this position to Lieutenant Brennan. The room went silent. Not the comfortable silence of men waiting for orders, but the heavy silence of judgment being passed without words. Solo assignment, 72 hours, no relief, no rotation. Someone in the third row muttered something. Ashford ignored it. Brennan will provide overwatch and tactical intelligence for all 3 platoons. Questions? A hand went up. Staff Sergeant Cole Rutledge, 20 years in, face like weathered leather. Sir, with respect, that's a critical position. Shouldn't we assign a team, or at least pair her with? Command's decision, Sergeant. Brennan has top qualification scores. She's trained for this. Another pause, weighted with things left unsaid. Dismissed. The soldiers filed out, most avoiding eye contact with Kira. She remained seated, waiting until the room cleared. Then she stood, gathered her gear, and headed for the door. Lieutenant, Ashford's voice stopped her. She turned. This isn't personal, he said, but that's a lot of responsibility for someone without combat deployment experience. I understand, sir. Do you? He moved closer, voice dropping. You'll be alone up there. No backup. If you freeze, if you hesitate, men die. My men. Can you handle that? Kira met his gaze. I was trained by the best, sir. I won't let you down. Your trainer isn't the one up on that ridge. The door opened before she could respond. Master Sergeant Garrett Hayworth stepped through, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. At 64, Hayworth moved like a man 20 years younger, all coiled economy and controlled strength. His beard was steel gray, his eyes the color of glacial ice. 3 rows of ribbons on his chest told a story of Desert Storm, Somalia, Bosnia, and a dozen classified operations that would never make the history books. Captain Ashford. Hayworth's voice carried the rasp of too many years shouting orders over gunfire. Might I have a word? Sergeant Hayworth, this is a command briefing, not... I requested Lieutenant Brennan for this assignment. Specifically. Did command mention that? Ashford's jaw tightened. No, Sergeant, they did not. Hayworth moved to the map, traced the ridgeline with one scarred finger. Ridge 7 requires a sniper with patience, discipline, and the ability to make decisions under pressure without ego getting in the way. He turned, fixing Ashford with a look that had made recruits weep. Your top 3 male snipers. I train them all. Good soldiers, but they shoot to prove something. Brennan shoots to accomplish the mission. There's a difference. Sergeant, I appreciate your expertise, but her father was Sergeant Thomas Brennan, served under me in Somalia, 97. Best damn sniper I ever trained, until his daughter came along. Ashford's expression shifted slightly. Recognition. Hayworth's voice didn't change, but something shifted in the air. Thomas held a forward observation post alone for 4 days during the Mogadishu aftermath. 96 hours. Kept an entire company alive by calling airstrikes on militia positions. You know how he died? Ashford shook his head. Stayed at his post during an ambush. Got his people out first. Died making sure the last man reached safety. Hayworth glanced at Kira, then back to Ashford. Brennans don't abandon their post, Captain, and they don't miss. That's a hell of a legacy to live up to. She's not living up to it. Hayworth's tone was flat, certain. She's continuing it. Ashford studied them both, calculation visible behind his eyes. Fine, but if this goes wrong, it won't. After Ashford left, Kira and Hayworth stood alone in the empty conference room. The silence stretched, comfortable in the way that only comes from years of shared understanding. "You didn't have to do that, Sarge," Kira said finally. "Do what?" "Defend me. I can handle Ashford." Hayworth picked up his cap from the table, turned it in his hands. "Your father made me promise something." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Kira saw something she rarely saw in those ice-blue eyes. Emotion. The memory came unbidden. Somalia, 1997. Night before the deployment that would take everything. Thomas Brennan and Garrett Hayworth loading gear in the pre-dawn darkness. Thomas pulling him aside, voice low. "Ironside." That's what the men called him then, still did. "If anything happens to me, and my baby girl ever wants to serve, you train her right. Don't let them break her. Don't let them make her less than she is." Hayworth had gripped his shoulder. "Nothing's going to happen. You'll train her yourself." But Thomas had looked at him with eyes that knew, eyes that had seen too much. "Promise me." Back in the conference room, Kira's voice was quiet. "I didn't know that. I told him nothing would happen. Told him he'd train you himself." Hayworth's voice roughened. "I was wrong, but I kept the promise anyway." Kira felt her throat tighten. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." He moved toward the door, then paused. From his jacket, he pulled an envelope. Yellowed with age, her father's handwriting on the front. Just her name, nothing else. "He gave me this the night before he deployed, made me promise to give it to you when the time was right." Kira stared at it. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for it. "Not yet," Hayworth said, pulling it back. "After the mission, when you come back, your father would want you focused, clear-headed." He settled his cap on his head. "Ridge 7 is going to be cold, miserable, lonely. You'll be up there with nothing but your rifle and your thoughts for 3 days straight. Your mind will play tricks. You'll doubt yourself. Remember what I taught you." His eyes locked with hers. Patience beats panic. Every single time. He moved to the door, hand on the frame. "And Kira, your father would be proud. I'm sure of that." After he left, Kira stood in the empty room, staring at the map. Ridge 7. 72 hours alone. She'd been preparing for this her whole life. The climb to Ridge 7 took 4 hours. The trail was steep, switchbacking through pine forests that grew thinner and more skeletal as elevation increased. By the time Kira reached the observation post, her breath came in white clouds, and the temperature had dropped to 15 degrees below zero. The post itself was a collapsed observation tower from the Cold War era. Concrete and rusted steel, half buried in decades of accumulated debris. Someone had cleared out enough space for a shooting position, reinforced with sandbags that were now frozen solid as concrete. A small overhang provided minimal protection from the elements. Kira set up methodically. Rifle position first, checking sight lines and angles. Her weapon was a custom-built bolt-action in .338 Lapua Magnum, capable of accurate fire past 1,000 meters. She'd named it after her father, Thomas. She ran her hand along the stock. Cold metal and wood, familiar weight, the rifle that had never let her down. Communications check. The radio crackled to life. "Ridge 7, this is Base Command. Radio check, over. Base Command, Ridge 7, 5 by 5, establishing overwatch position now. Copy, Ridge 7. Enemy contact expected within 12 hours. Stay frosty." She settled in, scanning the valley below through her scope. The defensive perimeter was visible as a series of prepared positions, fighting holes and reinforced bunkers, arranged in interlocking fields of fire. 3 platoons, roughly 90 men, spread across terrain that could accommodate twice that number. The wind picked up as darkness fell. Snow began falling, light at first, then heavier. Kira wrapped herself in her cold weather gear, checked her supplies. Ammunition, 47 rounds. Water, 2 canteens, both frozen within an hour. Food, MREs that would need to be thawed with body heat before eating. First aid kit, backup radio, knife. Everything a soldier needed to survive alone in hostile territory. Everything except company. Hour 12 came with first contact. Kira was scanning the northern approach when movement caught her eye. 6 figures moving in tactical formation through the tree line. They wore white winter camouflage, but their movement patterns were wrong for American forces. Base Command, Ridge 7. I have eyes on 6 hostiles, grid 279er. Hostile advance pattern. Recommend alert status. Ridge 7, confirm hostiles. Weapons free, your discretion. Kira tracked the point man through her scope. Young, maybe 22, carrying a PKM machine gun. He moved well, checking his flanks, using cover effectively. Professional. She waited. Let her breathing slow. Let the world narrow to just the scope and the target. The formation advanced to within 300 meters of the defensive line. Still outside effective range for most of the defenders below, but well within Kira's range. She calculated. Wind, 12 knots from the northeast. Temperature, -8 and falling. Range, 680 meters. Elevation angle, -15 degrees. The mathematics flowed automatically, burned into muscle memory by thousands of practice rounds. Breathe in, breathe out, halfway out, hold, squeeze. The rifle spoke. The point man dropped. Chaos erupted below. The formation scattered, losing cohesion exactly as she knew they would. The defenders opened up with suppressing fire, catching the disorganized enemy in a crossfire. 5 more hostiles went down. The survivor retreated into darkness. Ridge 7, Base Command. Excellent shooting. That's 6 confirmed. Enemy advance halted. Kira didn't respond. She was already scanning for the next threat, knowing this was just the beginning. Hour 24 brought 3 more probes. Each time Kira identified the threat before the defenders below could see it. Each time her first shot eliminated a key target. Officer, machine gunner, radioman threw the enemy formation into disarray. By hour 36, her kill count stood at 21. Captain Ashford's voice came over the radio, professional but grudging. Ridge 7, Base Command. Your overwatch is keeping us alive up here. Whatever they're paying you, it's not enough. Kira allowed herself a small smile. Just doing my job, sir. Well, keep doing it. The cold was getting worse. Her water was frozen solid. She'd stopped feeling her toes around hour 20. The MREs had to be thawed inside her jacket, against her body, and even then they were barely edible. Sleep was impossible. The position required constant vigilance, and the cold wouldn't allow rest anyway. She wrote mental letters to keep her mind sharp. Letters to her sister back in Texas, telling her about the snow. Letters to her mother, assuring her everything was fine. Letters to her father, telling him she was holding the line just like he'd taught her. Hour 48 brought the real test. Kira spotted them through a gap in the snowfall. 2 full squads, 24 soldiers moving with a coordination that spoke of serious training. Not militia, not insurgents, professional military. She keyed her radio. Base Command, Ridge 7. I have 24 hostiles advancing in formation. This is a coordinated assault, not a probe. Recommend full defensive alert. Copy, Ridge 7. All stations weapons tight until Ridge 7 initiates. Kira tracked the formation leader through her scope. Older than the others, moving with absolute confidence. An officer. She could see insignia on his uniform now, partially obscured by winter camouflage. Russian, not separatist, Spetsnaz. This wasn't a local conflict. This was a foreign military incursion on American soil. Base Command, Ridge 7, confirm enemy identification. These are Russian Spetsnaz. Repeat, Russian Special Forces. Static. Then Ashford's voice, tight with controlled tension. Ridge 7, say again. Russian Spetsnaz, professional military. This is an invasion, not an insurgent action. A long pause. Ridge 7, maintain position. Command is evaluating. The Spetsnaz formation advanced. They were good, using terrain and concealment better than anyone Kira had faced in training. But good wasn't perfect. She found her rhythm. Breathe. Calculate. Fire. The officer went down, then the radioman, then the point man. The formation fragmented. Return fire came her way, rounds cracking through the air overhead, but they were firing blind. She was smoke in the darkness, a ghost in the snow. By the time they retreated, she'd eliminated 8 more, 29 total. But they'd learned something in that engagement. They'd triangulated her general position. Not precise enough to target her directly, but enough to know someone was up on Ridge 7. Someone who was destroying their assault formations before they could engage the main defensive line. Hour 60 came with a development that changed everything. Kira was scanning the valley when she caught a flash of light far to the north. Binoculars revealed a forward staging area, temporary structures and vehicles barely visible through the snow, and helicopters, 3 of them, attack birds designed for this kind of terrain. She keyed her radio. Base command, Ridge 7, enemy air assets spotted. Northern sector, 3 attack helicopters. Grid, November 7. Recommend immediate air support. Negative, Ridge 7. Weather has grounded all aircraft. You're on your own up there. Kira watched the helicopters through her scope. They were preparing for something. Loading troops, running pre-flight checks. They were coming for her. Hour 70 brought confirmation. One of the helicopters lifted off, running lights dark, moving low along the valley floor. It was heading toward Ridge 7. Base command, enemy helicopter inbound to my position. They've identified me as a priority target. Ridge 7, recommend immediate evacuation. Position is compromised. Negative, base command. If I abandon this position, you lose overwatch. The defensive line will be blind. Lieutenant, that's a direct order. Evacuate immediately. Kira looked down at the defensive positions below. Men she'd kept alive for 3 days. Soldiers who were counting on her to see the threats they couldn't. Sir, with respect, if I leave, those men die. I'm staying. Ashford's voice came back hard as stone. Lieutenant Brennan, your father died because he wouldn't abandon his post. Don't make me watch his daughter do the same thing. Kira's voice was steady, clear. My father died making sure his people got out alive. I'm making sure mine stay alive. She paused. Ridge 7, maintaining position. She cut the radio before Ashford could respond. The helicopter appeared through the snow, a black shape against white sky. It circled her position, searching. Kira pressed herself into the frozen ground, knowing her winter camouflage was her only hope. Then she heard it, a second helicopter, coming from the south. This one was American. A UH-60 Black Hawk, running low and fast. Her radio crackled. Ridge 7, this is Evac 1. We are inbound to extract you. Pop smoke and prepare for emergency extraction. Kira didn't move. The Russian helicopter was still circling, still hunting. Ridge 7, acknowledge. We are taking fire. We need you to. The transmission cut off in a burst of static and the sound of impacts. Taking fire. We're hit. We're hit. Hydraulics failing. Through her scope, Kira saw it. The Russian helicopter had forced the American bird down. Not destroyed, disabled. And now a second Russian helicopter was landing near the crash site, disgorging soldiers. This wasn't a random engagement. This was a coordinated capture operation. They weren't trying to kill her. They wanted her alive. Kira grabbed her rifle and started moving, sliding down the backside of the ridge toward the crash site. The Black Hawk had managed a controlled crash about 200 meters from her position, sliding sideways into a snowbank. She could see the crew trying to evacuate, the pilot fighting to open his door, the crew chief, Staff Sergeant Quinn Maddox, pulling wounded soldiers out of the cabin. The Russian soldiers hit them fast and professional. 3-round bursts, controlled fire. The pilot went down. Two of the wounded soldiers never made it out of the cabin. Quinn took 3 rounds defending the door, trying to give the others time. He collapsed in the snow, and Kira's heart seized. She was 150 meters out when they saw her. Shouts in Russian, weapons swinging in her direction. She dropped 2 of them before they could fire, but there were too many, too close. A rifle butt caught her across the temple. Her vision exploded in stars and darkness. She felt her weapon being torn from her grip, felt hands forcing her down into the snow. Zip ties cut into her wrists, pulled tight enough to stop circulation. Someone grabbed her hair, lifted her head. A face filled her vision. Older than the soldiers, with a scar running from temple to jaw that pulled his mouth into a permanent sneer. "The sniper," he said in accented English. "Lieutenant Brennan, Garrett Hayworth's student, you've caused us considerable trouble." Kira tried to speak, but blood filled her mouth from where she'd bitten her tongue. "Your father was Thomas Brennan, yes, Somalia hero. Died at his post like a good soldier." The man smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Hayworth will be heartbroken to lose both father and daughter to their foolish American stubbornness." He released her hair, let her head crack against the frozen ground. "Take her." They dragged her past Quinn. He was still alive. She could see his chest rising and falling, see his eyes tracking her movement. She caught his gaze, held it for 1 precious second. She blinked twice, slowly, deliberately, the signal they'd practiced in training. Play dead. Quinn's eyes widened slightly, understanding. Then they threw a hood over her head and dragged her to their helicopter. The rotor wash threw stinging snow into what little exposed skin she had. Hands shoved her into the cabin, forced her down on the deck. The helicopter lifted off. Kira counted seconds in her head, building a mental map despite the hood and the fear. Ascent duration, engine strain, the way the airframe tilted. They were gaining altitude fast, too fast for a standard extraction. The hood came off. Wind hit her like a fist. The door was wide open, nothing but white void beyond. They were high. She estimated 800 feet, maybe more. The blizzard made it impossible to judge for certain. Colonel Viktor Petrov stood before her, one hand on the overhead rail, 3 soldiers behind him, watching her the way wolves watch wounded prey. And Quinn's understanding eyes. And then White rushing up impossibly fast. Impact. The world didn't just stop, it shattered. Every nerve in her body screaming a message her brain couldn't process because there was too much, all at once, everywhere. Snow compressed beneath her with a sound like thunder wrapped in cotton. The force drove through her skeleton, looking for the weakest points. Found her shoulder, her ribs, turned bone against bone in ways anatomy never intended. Then nothing. Darkness swallowed her whole. Time passed, seconds or hours impossible to tell. Her consciousness drifted in that space between alive and not, where pain couldn't reach and cold couldn't touch. When awareness returned, it came in fragments. White, endless white stretching in every direction. She blinked, the white remained. Above her, below her, surrounding her like she'd fallen into the pages of an unwritten book. Am I dead? The thought came calm, clinical, like she was observing someone else's situation from a comfortable distance. Then the pain arrived. It hit like a second impact, deep and profound, the kind of pain that lived in marrow and whispered promises about permanent damage, about things that would never work right again. Her right arm responded when she tried to move it, fingers flexing, snow crunching beneath her palm, cold and real in there. Alive then. Left arm, nothing. The shoulder felt fundamentally wrong, not just dislocated, torn. The joints separated in ways that made her stomach turn when she tried to picture it. Both legs moved. Small mercies in a situation with none to spare. Spine intact. If she'd broken her back, she'd already be dead from the cold. Assessment. training overriding the screaming protests from every nerve. Left shoulder destroyed. 4 ribs cracked or broken. She could feel them grinding when she breathed. Possible concussion. The edges of her vision swimming with dark spots. Lacerations across her scalp and forearms. Blood freezing before it could drip. And hypothermia, not setting in, already here. Already wrapping cold fingers around her core. The zip ties still bound her wrists. She'd forgotten about them during the fall. Now the plastic cut into swollen flesh, blood pooling where circulation had stopped, freezing into dark red ice. Kira forced herself to assess the situation like Hayworth had taught her. Emotion later, survival now. She'd landed in a depression where the valley floor met the ridge. An avalanche channel, maybe 20 feet deep, filled with powder snow that had compressed beneath her weight. Just enough, barely enough. The meteorological odds of this particular drift being here, in this exact spot, at this exact depth, were so astronomical they weren't worth calculating. She was alive. That's what mattered. Kira rolled onto her side. Her shoulder exploded with fresh agony, white-hot pain that made her vision gray out. She bit down hard, tasting blood, copper and warm and real. No sound. Never make sound when you don't know who's listening. That was basic, day one, before they even issued you a rifle. She forced herself to her knees. The world tilted at impossible angles, gravity pulling sideways. She waited, focusing on breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Each breath sent knives between her ribs, but she breathed anyway. Stay conscious, stay moving. The mission doesn't care about your comfort. The blizzard was thinning slightly. Visibility maybe 60 meters. Through gaps in the falling snow, she could see the dark outline of Ridge 7, 2 kilometers northeast. She knew this valley, had studied every meter of it from her position. Then she heard them. Engines. Multiple vehicles moving slow along the valley road. Methodical, professional, searching. They wanted confirmation, wanted to find her body, wanted proof that the American sniper who'd cost them 47 men was finally, truly dead. Kira dropped flat. The impact sent fresh waves of agony through her ribs, but she didn't make a sound. Through the swirling snow, she made out 2 trucks. Soldiers with binoculars scanning the drifts. Thermal optics sweeping back and forth, looking for a heat signature. They'd find her in minutes if she stayed here. She started crawling backward, using her good arm and both legs to drag herself through the snow. Every movement was torture. Every breath felt like someone was sliding knives between her ribs. But she moved, because Brennans don't quit. She reached a collapsed section of stone wall, old fortifications from some forgotten conflict, half buried by decades of snow. She pressed herself against the frozen earth behind it, and that's when she saw it. 20 meters to her left, half buried in the same drift system that had saved her life. Her rifle. Thomas. It must have been torn from her grip during the struggle in the helicopter. Must have fallen through the same 800 feet. Must have landed in the same impossible snowdrift. The rifle lay there, dark metal and wood against pristine white, waiting for her. Kira evaluated the distance, the open ground, the patrol timing, 30 seconds before they'd be close enough to spot movement. She moved, not crawling this time, dragging herself forward with her good arm, pushing with her legs, moving as fast as her broken body would allow. Her shoulders screamed. The zip ties cut deeper. She left a blood trail in the snow, but the falling flakes were already covering it. 20 seconds. Her hand closed around the rifle stock. She pulled it to her chest, cradling it like it was the most precious thing in the world. Because right now, it was. She checked the action. Snow packed in the barrel. Useless until cleared. The magazine was still seated. She couldn't check the chamber with her hands bound, but the weight felt wrong. Not full, not empty, maybe half. 15 seconds. She rolled behind the stone wall as the first truck passed. Soldiers scanning, weapons ready, thermal scopes painting the landscape in shades of heat and cold. But they were looking for a corpse, not a threat. Their formation was sloppy, too confident. They believed she was dead, buried somewhere under all this white, frozen solid. Problem solved. Kira waited until both trucks passed, counted to 60 in her head. Then she used the rough stone edge of the wall to saw at the zip ties. The plastic was military grade, thick, designed to hold prisoners during transport. It took 4 minutes of desperate sawing, 4 minutes of her shoulder burning with each movement, 4 minutes of her vision graying at the edges from pain and cold. The ties parted with a sound like a gunshot in the silence. Blood rushed back into her hands. The pain was transcendent, beyond anything the fall had caused, like someone had filled her veins with molten steel and lit it on fire. She bit through her lip completely. Blood filled her mouth. She swallowed it and didn't make a sound. She cleared the rifle barrel with numb fingers, packed the snow out, cycled the action. The bolt moved smooth and perfect. Machine steel that didn't care about cold or impossible circumstances. It did its job regardless. 14 rounds remaining. The patrol had disappeared into the blizzard, still searching, still certain they'd find her body any minute now. Kira shouldered Thomas despite the agony in her left arm, started moving parallel to their track, using terrain and weather for concealment. They thought she was dead. She was about to teach them otherwise. The patrol had made a tactical error. They'd split into 2 teams to cover more ground faster. 4 soldiers in the smaller group, moving in loose formation, checking grid squares methodically. Kira watched them from 70 meters away, concealed behind a fallen tree that provided both cover and a stable shooting platform. They were cold. She could tell by the way they moved, clustered too close together for warmth instead of maintaining proper spacing. Weapons drooping slightly instead of up and ready. They wanted this detail over, wanted to get back to their warm base in hot food and the certainty that the American sniper was dead. The first soldier stopped, pulled out a pack of cigarettes. His team leader barked something in Russian. "Keep moving, stay alert, we're still in a combat zone." The soldier shrugged, cupped his hands around his lighter. The small flame was bright in the gray afternoon. Kira let her breathing slow, let the world narrow to just the crosshairs and the target. All the pain, all the cold, all the fear. It all went into a box in her mind labeled, "Later," and she closed the lid. She exhaled, halfway out, held it, squeezed. The rifle spoke. The soldier dropped. The cigarette fell from his fingers, still burning. A small orange point against infinite white. The others scattered, training taking over, but panic drove them wrong. One went left into open ground. Another dove behind a snowdrift that provided concealment but no cover. Kira's second shot caught the exposed soldier mid-stride. The remaining 2 found cover behind a disabled truck, half buried in snow. Smart. The engine block would stop her rounds, but she could hear them on the radio now, calling for support, reporting contact. 2 minutes, maybe less before the second patrol arrived. Kira moved. Shoot and move. Never give them a chance to triangulate. The blizzard intensified, a white wall that dropped visibility to nothing. She used it, circled wide, approached the truck from the blind side. Her shoulder was on fire, her ribs grinding bone against bone with every breath. She compartmentalized it, turned it into background noise, just information. The mission doesn't care. She heard them before she saw them. Heavy breathing, the click of a magazine being checked. Fear had a sound, and she'd learned to recognize it years ago. Kira came around the truck's rear bumper, low and fast. The first soldier was watching the wrong direction. Never considered the shooter might have flanked them. Never considered she might be that close. She put him down with a controlled pair, center mass, exactly like Hayworth had drilled into her 10,000 times until it was as automatic as breathing. The second soldier spun, rifle coming up, training versus desperation. But training needed time, and desperation was too slow. Her third shot took him in the chest. He fell backward, weapon clattering against metal. Silence. Just wind and falling snow and her own labored breathing. Kira checked both bodies, took ammunition from their chest rigs, 17 rounds, plus one functional radio, already tuned to the Russian tactical frequency. She pocketed both, started moving before the second patrol arrived. They found the bodies in minutes. The radio erupted with frantic Russian, words she recognized from language school. Sniper, casualties, contact. But Kira was already 200 meters away, climbing toward higher ground, using the terrain and weather to disappear. Let them panic. Let them call for air support that couldn't fly in this weather. Let them organize sweeps that would find nothing. She found a rocky outcrop with good sightlines. From here she could see 3 different approaches into the valley, and in the distance, barely visible through the snow, the enemy forward base. Temporary structures, vehicles, communications array, maybe 70 personnel, too many to assault directly. But she didn't need to assault them. She just needed to make them afraid. The radio crackled in her pocket. All units be advised. Hostile sniper active in Sector 7. Extreme caution. High-value threat. Hostile sniper. They still didn't know it was her. Thought maybe she had backup. A rescue team. American reinforcements. Good. Let them think that. Kira settled into position. The cold was advancing past painful into numbness. That was worse. Much worse. She had maybe 6 hours before her body started shutting down. 6 hours to destroy them. Through her scope, she watched the base transform. Soldiers running to defensive positions. Officers shouting. Vehicles starting up. They were organizing a major sweep, bringing overwhelming force to bear. Kira smiled despite the pain. Let them come. The first kill came at what passed for sunset in the perpetual gray. A supply truck, alone on the road between the base and the highway, standard resupply run. The driver probably thinking about dinner. Kira let it pass her position, waited until it was 200 meters out, then shot out both rear tires from 300 meters. The truck jackknifed into a ditch. The driver emerged, cursing, kicked the shredded tire, already reaching for his radio. His passenger jumped out with weapon ready, more cautious. Then 2 more soldiers came jogging from the base, sent to investigate why the truck hadn't reported in. They clustered around the disabled vehicle, backs exposed, attention on the mechanical problem, not on the tree line 300 meters away. Kira took the passenger first. He folded without understanding why. The others scattered, but there was nowhere to go. Open ground, deep snow. She worked methodically. Second shot, third, fourth. The driver lasted longest, got his rifle up, never found a target. She left before reinforcements arrived, melted into the blizzard. The radio traffic changed after that. Professional communications giving way to shorter, sharper exchanges. Fear creeping in. Unit 3, report status. All 4 down, single shooter, long range. Pause. The woman was eliminated. Confirm visual on hostile. Longer pause. Sir, we saw nothing, just bodies. Midnight came. Kira had moved to a new position overlooking the eastern perimeter. A 6-man patrol emerged, moving too cautiously, checking every shadow, wasting time. She let them wander for 30 minutes, learning their patterns. The point man was competent but nervous. The tail gunner had good instincts. Good instincts wouldn't save him. She waited until they were at maximum extension, strung out along a narrow trail between ridges. Perfect kill zone. Then she shot the tail gunner first. The point man spun, started organizing a defense. Kira shot him next. The middle 4 went to ground, returned suppressing fire. Hundreds of rounds poured into empty snow, beautiful and useless. She'd already moved, circled to a new position. Let them burn through ammunition. Let them feel the certainty they were fighting shadows. When they stopped to reload, she fired from a new angle. 2 more down. The others broke, ran for the base in pure panic. She let them run, let them spread the fear. By 3 in the morning, the radio had deteriorated. Command, we need air support. No aircraft can fly, you have your orders. Our orders are suicide. There's something out there. Standard counter-sniper protocol. Protocol doesn't work against ghosts. Ghost. Kira liked that. Her ammunition was down to 8 rounds. The cold had progressed to stage 2, hypothermia. She'd lost feeling in 3 toes. Could see the skin turning waxy white. But the base was terrified. She could hear it. See it. Phase 1 complete. Time for Phase 2. The radio gave Colonel Petrov away. Kira had been monitoring communications for hours, learning patterns. Most transmissions came from unit leaders, but one voice kept appearing, calm, controlled, issuing orders the others followed, the commander. She triangulated based on transmission strength. He was mobile, moving between positions to maintain morale. Smart, but mobile meant exposed. At 4 in the morning, she heard it. Colonel Petrov arriving at Checkpoint Delta in 5 minutes. Checkpoint Delta, northeast corner, vehicle park meets communications array. Kira knew the spot. Good sight lines from a collapsed bunker 200 meters out. She started moving. The cold had gone beyond pain into something almost peaceful, dangerous. She bit her tongue hard, used the sharp pain to stay focused. The bunker was partially buried, perfect concealment. She cleared her firing position, arranged her last 8 rounds within easy reach. Then she waited. A UAZ 469 approached, stopped at the checkpoint. 2 guards emerged. The rear door opened. Colonel Viktor Petrov stepped out. Mid-50s, too many medals, moving with the confidence of someone who'd never been personally threatened on a battlefield. Kira could have taken the shot. Easy kill. 200 meters, minimal wind. But she waited. Petrov walked to the guard post. Went inside. His aide followed. Through a gap in the sandbags, she could see them studying a map. Petrov gesturing. She read enough lips to catch fragments. Sweep pattern. Converging vectors. Force her into the open. A major operation. Dawn assault. Full garrison. Overwhelming force. Kira made her decision. She shot out the generator. Darkness swallowed the checkpoint. Shouts. Confusion. Someone fumbled with a flashlight. Her second shot exploded it in his hand. Petrov's aide burst out. Weapon raised, scanning for targets he couldn't see. Third round. He dropped. Petrov stumbled out behind him, diving for cover behind the UAZ, firing blindly, panic fire, wasting ammunition. Kira waited. Let him empty the magazine. Click. Empty. Heavy breathing, fumbling to reload. Colonel Petrov, she called out in Russian. Do you know who I am? Silence. Then his voice, tight with fear or rage. The sniper, from the ridge. I'm the woman you threw from a helicopter. Longer silence. She heard his mind rejecting what couldn't be possible. Impossible? You should be dead. I was, for about 30 seconds. Then I remembered something my father taught me. She shifted slightly, maintaining her firing solution. Brennan's don't quit. What do you want? Count your casualties. You said 47. How many now? No answer. Just wind and snow and labored breathing. I'm at 63. 13 more since you murdered me. I think I'll make it an even 100 before dawn. This is madness. You're one person. Kira's voice was cold, certain. Yes, one person, one woman, just meat and bone, remember? She squeezed the trigger. But this meat learned how to fly. Petrov jerked once, then was still. 5 rounds remaining. The base erupted in chaos. Kira watched from 800 meters northwest. Soldiers running, officers screaming contradictory orders. Petrov's death had broken their command structure. She'd taken his radio. Through it, she heard the panic. Command is down. Colonel Petrov is dead. This is Major Volkov. All units hold positions. Holding positions is what got us killed. Kira keyed the radio. Let them hear the click. Silence fell across the frequency. Then she spoke. Russian, accented, but clear. This is the ghost in the snow. I'm giving you one chance. Abandon your vehicles and weapons. Walk north. You have 30 minutes. Chaos exploded across the channel. It's her. She has the colonel's radio. Everyone shut up. Unknown hostile. Your threats are... Kira shot out the communications array from 800 meters. The antenna collapsed in sparks, cutting their link to Moscow, to anyone who might give them orders. The radio went dead. Now they were alone, just like she'd been. She gave them 15 minutes. Watched them argue through her scope. Some wanted to flee, others wanted to fight. Indecision paralyzed them. Then she saw movement from the south, American forces. Her defensive line hadn't collapsed. Petrov had lied. They'd held. And now they were advancing. 2 platoons, proper formation, exploiting the gap she'd created. Kira keyed her secondary radio. American encryption. Bravo 6, this is Overwatch. You're advancing into enemy strongpoint. They're disorganized but armed. I can provide fire support. Static. Then a young voice. Overwatch, we thought you were... Where are you? Doesn't matter. I have eyes on target. An explosion cut him off. Kira swung her scope toward the base. Enemy mortars. Blind fire toward the American advance. Decision point. She could identify herself, coordinate the assault, by the book, or finish this her way. She targeted the mortar team. 4 soldiers. 1 officer calling coordinates. Dropped the officer first. The team froze. Second shot took the loader. The others ran. Overwatch, that was beautiful. We're advancing. Kira moved, covering their approach. 3 rounds left. Enemy soldiers at the main gate opened fire. Heavy machine gun. Tracers cutting through snow. Americans dove for cover. Kira targeted the gun position. 2 soldiers, gunner and assistant. First shot, gunner's helmet snapped back. The assistant grabbed for the weapon. Second shot, he fell. Push through, they're breaking. They were. Soldiers throwing down weapons, hands raised, white flags appearing. 1 round left. Kira scanned one final time. Found him. Soldier in a guard tower. Rifle aimed at the lead American element. Last shot. He fell. The rifle clicked, empty. Kira set Thomas down gently. Her hand lingered on the cold metal. Thank you, old friend. We did good. She tried to stand. Her legs gave out. 3 days of cold and stress. Her body extracting its price. Adrenaline gone. Nothing left but damaged meat and broken bone. She made it to her knees before the world tilted. Core temperature dropping. Body shutting down. Maybe 30 minutes before unconsciousness. An hour before her heart stopped. Kira started crawling toward the base, toward American voices, toward the sounds of victory. She left a blood trail, red against white. 20 meters, 30, 50. Her vision tunneled, the edges going dark. She saw her father walking beside her. Just a memory, clear and perfect. The day before Somalia, walking the fence line in Texas, sun warm on their faces. Dad, are you scared about going to war? He'd knelt down, looked her in the eye. Terrified, baby girl. Then why go? Because some things are worth being scared for. She hadn't understood then, but she understood now. 70 meters. Her hands were numb. Couldn't feel her legs. Just knew they were moving because she told them to. Come on, Kira. Brennans don't quit. Just a little farther. The firing had stopped. The battle was over. She heard boots, running. Here, I found someone. Then Garrett Hayworth's face appeared above her. His eyes wet, trying to hide it, failing. I got you, Kira. I got you. He pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around her. His hands gentle, checking her injuries with practiced efficiency. Hey, Sarge. Her voice sounded far away. Did we get Quinn? He's alive because of you. His jaw tight. Private Diaz, medkit, now! A young soldier appeared, terrified, fumbling with supplies. Sir, her core temp has to be in the 80s. We need to warm her now. Then warm her, whatever it takes. Emergency blankets, heat packs, IV with warm saline, medical science fighting thermodynamics. But Kira could feel herself sliding away. Stay with me. Hayworth's voice cut through the fog. Remember Chosin Reservoir? Marines held in -40 for 2 weeks. You're tougher than any Marine. She tried to nod. Your father would be so damn proud. Holding that ridge 72 hours, falling 800 feet and getting back up, saving Quinn, destroying an entire enemy force. That's not just soldiering, Kira. That's legend. Did I make it to 48? Hayworth smiled, tears freezing in his beard. 76, Kira. You made it to 76. Boots approached. Quinn Maddox, limping, arm in a sling, but alive. When he saw her, something broke in his expression. Ma'am, you came back. You fell 800 feet and you came back for me. She managed a smile. Couldn't let a good crew chief go to waste. Ma'am, that shot. His voice cracked. I felt the bullet pass my ear. 400 meters in a blizzard. How? Training. And a really good teacher. Hayworth gripped her hand. Medevac inbound. 2 minutes. You hold on. That's an order. Yes, Sergeant. But the cold was inside her now. In her bones. Deeper than heat packs could reach. Her eyes drifted closed. Kira! Sharp, commanding. Open your eyes. Look at me. She forced them open. I kept the promise, Sarge. Brennans don't quit. I know, but you're not done yet. Hear that helicopter? That's your ride home. You're going to survive this. The Black Hawk appeared, red crosses painted on its sides, settled into a clearing 30 meters away. They loaded her quickly. Hayworth climbed in beside her, refused to let go of her hand. As they lifted off, Kira looked out at the valley below. Ridge 7, the crash site, the route she'd crawled, the base she'd terrorized. It looked peaceful from up here. White mountains, falling snow, beautiful. Her eyes closed. Darkness claimed her. But this time, she knew she'd wake up. She heard shouts, confusion. Someone fumbled with a flashlight. Kira's second shot exploded the flashlight in the soldier's hand. Glass and plastic and blood spraying across white snow, visible even in darkness. Petrov's aide burst from the door, weapon raised, scanning for targets he couldn't see. Eyes not adjusted to the sudden darkness. Training telling him to find cover, return fire, establish a perimeter. Kira dropped him with her third round. The colonel stumbled out behind him, diving for cover behind the UAZ. He had a sidearm out now, firing blindly into the darkness. Panic fire, wasting ammunition on shadows and snow, and his own mortality suddenly made real. Kira waited. Let him burn through the magazine. Let the fear build. Let him understand what it felt like to be hunted by something you couldn't see. Click. Empty. She heard him breathing hard, fumbling to reload, hands shaking. Fear had a sound and she heard it clearly now. Colonel Petrov, Kira called out in Russian. Her accent was rough but understandable. Years of language training at Fort Huachuca coming back despite the cold and pain. Do you know who I am? Silence. Then his voice, tight with something that might have been fear or rage or both. The sniper, from the ridge. I'm the woman you threw from a helicopter. A longer silence. She could almost hear his mind working, processing, rejecting what couldn't be possible. Impossible. You should be dead. I was, for about 30 seconds. Then I remembered something my father taught me. Brennans don't quit. She shifted position slightly, using his voice to maintain her firing solution, making sure the angle was perfect. What do you want? Count your casualties. You said 47. How many now? No answer. Just the wind and the falling snow and his labored breathing behind the vehicle. I'm at 63. 13 more since you murdered me. I think I'll make it an even 100 before dawn. You can't. This is madness. You're one person. Kira's voice was cold, certain, like she was reading a weather report instead of pronouncing a death sentence. Yes, one person, one woman, just meat and bone, remember? She squeezed the trigger. But this meat learned how to fly. Petrov jerked once, then was still. Kira was already moving before his guards could respond, disappearing into the blizzard like smoke, like the ghost they'd called her. 5 rounds remaining, 4 hours until dawn. The enemy base erupted like a disturbed ant colony. Kira watched from her new position, a rocky promontory 800 meters northwest. They were abandoning all pretense of discipline now. Soldiers running between buildings, officers screaming contradictory orders, vehicles starting up without clear destinations. Petrov's death had broken something fundamental in their command structure. She'd taken his radio. Through it, she heard the chaos. Command is down. Colonel Petrov is dead. We need immediate... This is Major Volkov. I'm assuming field command. All units hold positions. Holding positions is what got us killed. We need to evacuate. Evacuation is not authorized. Hold your... Kira keyed the radio, letting them hear the click. The electronic sound of someone listening, someone waiting. Silence fell across the frequency. Then she spoke. Her Russian was accented but clear, each word carefully chosen, deliberately calm. This is the ghost in the snow. I'm giving you one chance. Abandon your vehicles and weapons. Walk north to the highway. You have 30 minutes. Chaos exploded across the channel, voices talking over each other, panic replacing discipline, the carefully maintained facade of military order crumbling like sandstone in wind. It's her. She has the colonel's radio. How is she still? Everyone shut up. This is Volkov. Unknown hostile, your threats are... Kira shot out the communications array from 800 meters away. The massive antenna structure collapsed in a shower of sparks, cutting their link to higher command, severing the electronic umbilical that connected them to Moscow, to their generals, to anyone who might tell them what to do. The radio went dead. Now they were truly alone, isolated, cut off, just like she'd been on Ridge 7 for 72 hours. She gave them 15 minutes, watching through her scope as they argued. Some wanted to flee, others wanted to fight. The indecision was paralyzing them, fear and training pulling in opposite directions. Then she saw movement from the south, friendly forces. Her defensive line hadn't collapsed. Petrov had lied. Somehow they'd held, and now they were advancing. 2 platoons at least, moving in proper formation, using the terrain, exploiting the gap her campaign of terror had created in the enemy defenses. Kira keyed her secondary radio, the one she'd kept from her original unit. American encryption, friendly frequency. Bravo 6, this is Overwatch. You're advancing into enemy strong point grid November 7. They're disorganized but still armed. I can provide fire support. Static. Then a voice she didn't recognize. Young, uncertain. Overwatch, we thought you were... Where are you? Doesn't matter. I have eyes on the target. Recommend holding at phase line echo while I suppress their defensive positions. Overwatch, be advised. We can't authorize offensive fire without visual confirmation of friendly forces. You need to... An explosion cut off the transmission. Kira swung her scope toward the base. The enemy was firing mortars, blind shots toward the advancing American forces. High-angle fire dropping out of the sky like steel rain. Decision point. She could identify herself, bring her people into a coordinated assault. By the book, safe, probably successful. Or she could finish this, her way. She targeted the mortar team. 4 soldiers loading rounds, 1 officer calling coordinates. They were set up in a cleared area near the base perimeter. No cover except the mortar pit itself. Kira dropped the officer first. The team froze, uncertain, looking around for their leader, for orders, for someone to tell them what to do. Her second shot took the loader. The remaining 2 broke and ran. Discipline shattered. Training forgotten. Just 2 young men who wanted to live to see tomorrow. The radio crackled. "Overwatch, whoever you are, that was beautiful. We're advancing under your cover." Kira moved to a new position. Covering their approach, she had 3 rounds left. Had to make them count. The enemy soldiers at the main gate saw the advancing friendly forces and opened fire. A heavy machine gun position, probably a PKM or NSV. Tracers cutting through the snow like angry fireflies. American soldiers dove for cover. The advance stalled. Kira targeted the heavy weapon emplacement. 2 soldiers manning it, gunner and assistant gunner. They were behind sandbags, but she could see the top of the gunner's helmet, the assistant gunner's shoulder as he fed the belt. First shot. The gunner's helmet snapped back. He slumped over the weapon. The assistant gunner grabbed for the gun, trying to take over. "Keep firing." Second shot. He fell backward, arms spread wide. The machine gun went silent. "Push through," someone shouted on the friendly channel. "They're breaking." They were. Kira watched the enemy formation collapse. Soldiers throwing down weapons, hands raised. White flags made from undershirts and bandages appearing from doorways and fighting positions. The ones who tried to fight found themselves caught between advancing Americans and a ghost they couldn't see. Couldn't fight, couldn't escape. 1 round left. Kira scanned the base one final time, looking for any threat to her advancing soldiers. Any last defender who might take one more American life. She found him, a soldier in a guard tower, rifle raised, aiming at the lead American element, finger on the trigger, last shot. He fell. The rifle clicked empty. Kira set Thomas down gently, almost reverently. Her hand lingered on the stock, cold metal and wood that had never let her down. "Thank you, old friend. We did good." Then she tried to stand. Her legs betrayed her. 3 days of cold, of stress, of pushing past every reasonable human limit. Her body had finally extracted its price. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was gone, burned through. Nothing left but damaged meat and broken bone. She made it to her knees before the world tilted sideways. Core temperature dropping. Her body was shutting down, prioritizing vital organs, abandoning the extremities. She had maybe 30 minutes before she lost consciousness, an hour before her heart stopped. Kira started crawling toward the enemy base, toward the sounds of gunfire fading into silence, toward American voices calling out coordinates and securing prisoners and requesting medevac for wounded. She left a trail of blood in the snow behind her, red against white, a breadcrumb path for anyone who cared to follow. 20 meters, 30. Her vision was tunneling, the edges going dark. She saw her father walking beside her, not a hallucination this time, just a memory, clear and perfect as crystal. The day before he deployed to Somalia. They'd walked the fence line of their Texas ranch together, the sun warm on their faces, the grass green and alive under their feet. "Dad, are you scared about going to war?" He'd stopped walking, knelt down, looked her in the eye with an expression she hadn't understood then, wouldn't understand for another 28 years. "Terrified, baby girl." "Then why go?" "Because some things are worth being scared for. Some things matter more than being comfortable or safe. You understand?" She'd nodded even though she didn't. Not really. Not then. But she understood now. 50 meters. Her hands were numb. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, just knew they were moving because she told them to. Because Brennans don't quit. Because her father hadn't quit, and neither would she. "Come on, Kira," she whispered to herself, voice barely audible over the wind. Brennan's don't quit, just a little farther. The firing had stopped. The battle was over. She could hear American voices now, calling out to each other, securing the area, the familiar cadence of military English after days of Russian. 70 meters. The world was going gray at the edges, closing in like a tunnel. She heard boots crunching in snow. Running. Someone shouted, "Here! I found someone!" More voices. Closer. Then Garrett Hayworth's face appeared above her, weathered and worn and more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen. His eyes were wet. He was trying to hide it, failing. "I got you, Kira." His voice was rough with emotion he was trying to keep under control. "I got you." He pulled off his jacket, wrapped it around her shaking body. His hands were gentle despite their size, checking her injuries with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd done this too many times before. "Hey, Sarge," she managed. Her voice sounded far away, like it was coming from someone else. "Did we get Quinn?" "He's alive because of you." Hayworth's jaw was tight. "Private Diaz, get me a med kit now." A young soldier appeared beside him, maybe 22, looking terrified. He fumbled with the medical supplies. "Sir, her core temp has to be in the 80s. We need to warm her now, or we're going to lose her." "Then warm her, Private, whatever it takes." They wrapped her in emergency blankets, heat packs pressed against her core. Diaz got an IV started, warm saline flowing into her veins. Medical science fighting against thermodynamics and the stubborn reality of a body too cold to sustain life. But Kira could feel herself sliding away, the cold claiming territory her body couldn't defend anymore. "Stay with me, Kira." Hayworth's voice cut through the fog. "Remember Korea training? I told you about Chosin Reservoir. Marines held in -40-degree weather for 2 weeks. You're tougher than any Marine. You hear me?" She tried to nod, wasn't sure if she succeeded. "Your father would be so damn proud of you right now. Holding that ridge for 72 hours, falling 800 feet and getting back up, saving your crew chief, destroying an entire enemy force. That's not just soldiering, Kira. That's legend." "Did I make it to 48? The words were slurred, tongue thick, lips numb. Hayworth smiled. She saw tears freezing in his beard. 76, Kira. You made it to 76. Boots approached. Quinn Maddox appeared, limping, one arm in an improvised sling, but alive and moving under his own power. When he saw Kira, something broke in his expression. He knelt in the snow beside her. "Ma'am, you came back. You fell 800 feet and you came back for me." Kira managed a smile. "Couldn't let a good crew chief go to waste." "Ma'am, that shot," Quinn's voice cracked. "I felt the bullet pass my ear. I heard the sonic crack. You threaded a needle at 400 meters in a blizzard. How is that even possible?" "Training," she whispered, "and a really good teacher." Hayworth gripped her good hand. "Medevac is inbound, 2 minutes out. You just hold on. You understand me? That's an order, Lieutenant." "Yes, Sergeant." But she could feel herself fading. The cold was inside her now, in her bones, in her blood, deeper than any heat pack or warm blanket could reach. Her eyes drifted closed. "Kira! Kira!" Hayworth's voice was sharp, commanding. "Open your eyes, look at me." She forced them open, saw him there. This man who'd kept a promise to a dead friend for 28 years. "I kept the promise, Sarge. Told you. Brennan's don't quit." I know you did. But you're not done yet. You hear that helicopter? That's your ride home. You're going to get on that bird and you're going to survive this just like you survived everything else." The helicopter appeared through the snow, a Black Hawk with red crosses painted on its sides. It settled into a clearing 30 meters away. Medics already jumping out with a stretcher. They loaded her quickly, efficiently. Hayworth climbed in beside her. refusing to let go of her hand. As the helicopter lifted off, Kira looked out the door at the valley below. Ridge 7, where she'd held the line. The crash site where they'd taken her. The route she'd crawled, leaving blood in the snow. The enemy base she'd terrorized for 3 days. It looked peaceful from up here, just white mountains and falling snow. Beautiful. Her eyes closed again. Darkness claimed her. She woke to beeping machines and the smell of antiseptic. For a confused moment, she thought she was back at Fort Carson. Then the pain reminded her. Everything hurt. That meant she was alive. Kira opened her eyes. White ceiling tiles, fluorescent lights, an IV in her arm, monitors beside the bed displaying vital signs that looked almost normal. "Welcome back, Lieutenant." She turned her head slowly. Hayworth sat in a chair beside her bed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His uniform was wrinkled, his beard unkempt, his eyes red-rimmed. "How long?" 48 hours. They had to put you in a medically induced coma to stabilize your core temperature. You were at 82 degrees when the medevac got you here. He stopped, cleared his throat. "The doctor said you shouldn't have survived. Not the fall, not the cold, not any of it. Not a miracle, just stubborn." He laughed, but it sounded wet. "That's what I told them. I said, you don't know the Brennans. They're too damn stubborn to die when it's inconvenient." Kira tried to sit up. Pain exploded through her left shoulder and ribs. Hayworth was there immediately, helping her, adjusting the bed. "Easy. You've got 4 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder that they had to surgically repair, severe frostbite on your right foot, multiple lacerations, and a concussion. The doctors want you on bed rest for at least another week." "My toes?" He said it gently. Matter of fact, no pity, just information. "You're losing 3 of them. Right foot. The frostbite was too severe. Surgery is scheduled for tomorrow." She nodded. 3 toes was a small price. "Quinn?" "Alive. Recovering 2 rooms down. He's been asking about you every hour." Hayworth leaned forward. "The defensive line held, Kira, thanks to you. We lost 4 men total over the 3-day engagement. Without your overwatch, command estimates we would have lost 30 or more." He paused. "You saved lives, a lot of lives." The door opened. Captain Ashford entered, cap in hand. Behind him came a colonel in dress blues, ribbons covering his chest. "Lieutenant Brennan." Ashford's voice was formal, but something had changed in his expression. "How are you feeling?" "Like I fell 800 feet, sir." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I imagine so." He stepped aside. "This is Colonel Harrison, base commander." Harrison moved to her bedside. Maybe 58, iron gray hair, weathered face of a combat veteran who'd seen his share of impossible things. "Lieutenant Brennan, I'll keep this brief, but there are some things that can't wait." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "The president wanted to present this personally, but Sergeant Hayworth insisted we couldn't wait. He said, and I quote, 'Brennans don't like waiting around for politicians.'" He opened the box. Inside, on a blue ribbon, was the Medal of Honor. Kira stared at it, unable to process what she was seeing. "For actions above and beyond the call of duty," Harrison continued, his voice formal, reading from memory or perhaps from orders he'd received. "For holding a critical defensive position solo for 72 hours. For eliminating 76 enemy combatants and preventing capture of classified technology. For refusing evacuation orders to maintain overwatch. For surviving execution and conducting a guerrilla campaign that destroyed enemy morale. And for saving Staff Sergeant Maddox with what our analysts call the most difficult shot in modern military history." He pinned it to her hospital gown. "You proved something up there, Lieutenant. You proved that courage has no gender, that skill and determination matter more than size or strength, that one soldier who refuses to quit can change the course of a battle." Harrison stepped back, came to attention, saluted. Ashford saluted. Hayworth saluted. Kira tried to return it with her good arm, tears streaming down her face. After they left, Kira and Hayworth sat in silence for a long moment. "Your father would have been so proud," Hayworth said quietly. "I wish he could see this. Tell me about him, about what really happened." Hayworth settled back in his chair. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he began. "Thomas was the best natural shooter I ever saw. Before you, anyway. We were in Somalia, setting up forward observation posts. Your father volunteered for the worst position, completely isolated, deep in hostile territory, no support for 4 days." He stared at something Kira couldn't see. "Militia units were trying to flank us. Thomas spotted them first, called in airstrikes that destroyed 3 companies, saved hundreds of lives. But on day 4, intelligence detected an ambush forming. Command ordered all forward observers to fall back." Hayworth's jaw tightened. Thomas's position was in the kill zone. If he'd stayed to get his equipment, to destroy his codes and maps, they would have overrun him. But if he'd left it, the enemy could have used that intel to target our units, to kill the men counting on him. Kira already knew where this was going, but she needed to hear it, needed to understand. He stayed, got his gear destroyed, codes burned, maps shredded. By the time he started moving, the ambush was already sprung. He made it 200 meters before they killed him. "They told us it was quick," Kira whispered. "It wasn't." Hayworth's voice was flat, empty. But he didn't stop moving until he knew his people were safe. The last thing he said on the radio was, "Tell Hayworth to watch over my baby girl. Tell him I kept the line." Kira couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight, her chest too full of things that had no words. "I made that promise, Kira, standing over his flag-draped coffin at Arlington. I promised him I'd watch over you, that if you ever wanted to serve, I'd train you right. And I kept that promise, just like you kept his legacy." He pulled something from his pocket, an old photograph, creased and faded. Young Sergeant Thomas Brennan in desert camouflage, standing beside a younger Hayworth, both grinning. "He'd want you to have this. I've carried it for 28 years. Kira took it with shaking hands. She could see herself in her father's features. Same stubborn jaw, same determined eyes. "Thank you, Sarge, for everything." "You don't thank family for keeping promises, Kira." The recovery was hard. The nightmares came. Falling, freezing, fighting. But Hayworth was always there. Never commenting on the screams. Never making her feel weak. He'd just sit and talk until she fell back asleep. Quinn visited when he could walk, standing at attention until she ordered him to sit. "I heard the bullet pass my ear," he said one day. "Felt the wind of it. Ma'am, that's not just skill, that's something else." "That's having a really good teacher," Kira replied. Captain Ashford came by on day 5. He pulled up a chair, sat in silence before speaking. "I was wrong about you, Lieutenant. I thought combat experience was what mattered. I was prejudiced, and I'm sorry." "You were being cautious, sir." "I was being an ass." He met her eyes. "You're the best soldier I've ever served with. Period." On day 8, they took her toes. When she woke from surgery, Hayworth was there. "How do you feel?" "Lighter." The doctors said she'd have full mobility. 6 months of therapy and she'd be back to full operational status. 6 months felt like forever, but she'd survived worse. The physical therapy was brutal. Learning to walk with missing toes meant relearning balance, fighting through frustration and pain. But every time she fell, she got back up. Hayworth walked beside her through it all, never helping unless she asked, never letting her quit. "Remember what matters," he'd say when she struggled. "Not how many times you fall, how many times you get back up." And slowly, it got easier. 5 years after Ridge 7, Kira stood at the front of a classroom at Fort Benning, Army Sniper School's newest instructor, teaching alongside Master Sergeant Garrett Hayworth. 30 students sat before her, 15 men, 15 women. all watching with expressions ranging from awe to skepticism. One of the male students raised his hand, cocky despite being untested. "Ma'am, no disrespect, but can a woman really handle the physical demands of long-range precision shooting?" Kira leaned against the desk, casual. "Let me tell you about a helicopter ride I took." The classroom went silent. 5 years ago, I spent 72 hours alone on a mountain ridge in -15-degree weather. No food, no heat, just me, my rifle, and a mission to keep soldiers alive. I eliminated 47 enemy combatants in those 72 hours. Then they captured me, bound my hands, threw me from a helicopter at 800 feet. They were certain no woman could survive that. She straightened, making eye contact with each student. "But I didn't die. I landed in a snowdrift, dislocated my shoulder, broke 4 ribs, and started crawling. Found my rifle, freed myself. Then I spent 3 days hunting the men who tried to kill me. By the time friendly forces arrived, I'd eliminated 29 more, destroyed their command structure, and saved my crew chief with a 400-meter shot that had a 3-inch margin for error." The cocky student was staring, mouth open. "So to answer your question, can a woman handle the demands? I don't know. Can you fall 800 feet, get up, and keep fighting? Because that's the standard now. Not your gender, your ability to complete the mission no matter what." Hayworth stepped forward. "Lieutenant Colonel Brennan is being modest. She's the best sniper I've ever trained in 45 years. You're here because you think you have what it takes. By the end of this course, we'll know if you're right. The only thing that will matter is whether you can make the shot when it counts." The weeks passed. Kira and Hayworth pushed the students harder than any of them had been pushed. They learned ballistics and patience in the mental game, and slowly, skeptics became believers. On weekends, Kira would drive to Arlington, stand at her father's grave, tell him about the week. "I'm keeping your promise, Dad, teaching the next generation." One Saturday, Hayworth joined her. "I'm retiring," he said quietly. Kira turned, shocked. "Sarge, you can't." "I'm 69, Kira. I've served for 47 years. I've kept every promise, including the one to your father." He smiled. "It's time." He pulled an envelope from his pocket, the same one from 5 years ago, yellowed with age. "Your father gave me this the night before he deployed, made me promise to give it to you when the time was right." Kira opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter dated September 1997. "My dearest Kira, if you're reading this, I didn't make it home. I'm sorry, baby girl, but sometimes duty takes us away from the people we love. You don't have to follow in my footsteps. You don't have to be a soldier. I'll be proud of you no matter what. But if you do choose to serve, know this: you are capable of extraordinary things. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Hayworth promised to watch over you. Trust him. He's the best soldier I ever knew. Remember that I love you. Always. Be strong. Be brave. P.S. If you ever find yourself in impossible circumstances, remember, sometimes you gotta fall to learn how to fly. Love always, Dad." Kira read it 3 times. Then she knelt beside the grave. "I kept the promise, Dad. I didn't quit, even when I fell from the sky, even when everything wanted me to give up." She stood, saluted. "And I'm going to keep teaching, keep passing on what you and Hayworth taught me." 15 years later, Lieutenant Colonel Kira Brennan stood in the same classroom, watching new students file in. One of the women raised her hand. "Ma'am, is it true you fell 800 feet and survived?" Kira smiled. "Yes, but that's not the important part." "What is?" "That I got back up, that I kept fighting, that I refused to let impossible circumstances define me." She moved to the front. "Being a sniper isn't about making impossible shots. It's about choosing every single day to be better than yesterday, to push past limits you thought were absolute, to stand your ground when everything screams, 'Run.'" She picked up her rifle. "Thomas, still perfect after all these years. Welcome to Army Sniper School. For the next 12 weeks, we're going to push you past every limit. And at the end, you'll understand what it means to be a sniper. She chambered around. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Kira Brennan. Some know me as the Snow Ghost, but here I'm just your instructor. And I'm going to teach you everything I know about surviving the impossible. She set Thomas on her desk. Let's begin. 2 years after that, Kira stood at Arlington again, this time beside Hayworth's casket. Master Sergeant Garrett Hayworth had passed quietly, living to 71. The funeral was massive. Hundreds he'd trained, officers whose lives he'd saved. Kira stood at attention in dress blues, dry-eyed despite the grief. Hayworth wouldn't want tears. As the ceremony concluded, Kira stepped forward. She removed her Medal of Honor, held it for a moment, then placed it in the casket with a note. You kept your promise. I'll keep mine. Hayworth's daughter approached. Colonel Brennan, what did you put in? A promise, Kira said. One he made to my father 28 years ago, and one I'm making to him. What promise? Kira looked at the rows of white headstones, at the flags snapping in the wind, at the eternal flame burning in the distance. To pass it on, to make sure his legacy lives, to teach the next generation. So somewhere, always, there's a soldier who knows what it means to hold the line. She saluted one final time, then walked to where her students waited. Ma'am, one said quietly, will you tell us about him? Kira looked at their young faces, at the determination and fear and hope she saw there. Get in the car, I'll tell you on the way. As they drove through Arlington's gates, Kira began, let me tell you about a promise, about a soldier who kept his word across decades and wars and generations. The car disappeared down the tree-lined road, carrying those stories forward, carrying the legacy forward. In the Colorado Rockies, snow continued to fall on what they now called Mitchell Ridge, silent, patient, unforgiving. And somewhere in those mountains, legends whispered, stories of the snow ghost who fell from the sky and got back up, who refused to die, who kept fighting when fighting seemed impossible. The stories would fade, memory would become myth, but the promise would remain. Soldiers would stand their ground, teachers would pass on knowledge, students would become instructors, and generation after generation would learn the same truth that Thomas Brennan taught his daughter, that Kira taught her students, that echoes through every training ground. The truth isn't complex. It doesn't require elaborate explanation. When you fall, you get back up. When they say you can't, you prove them wrong. When everything screams quit, you hold the line. Because some promises matter more than comfort, more than safety, more than fear. The promise to stand when others run, the promise to fight when others surrender, the promise to teach what you learned so the next generation stands taller. Brennans don't quit, neither do soldiers. Neither do those who understand what legacy truly means. Keep the promise, no matter what.